Welcome back to this series on the 5 steps for reading success. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you've been loving this information, learning about how to set your child up for success when it comes to their reading journey. We have already covered the first 4 steps, so make sure that you scroll back if you haven't listened to those episodes yet. The first one was all about oral language, and the second one was all about phonological and phonemic awareness. And both of those steps don't require any letter knowledge. So we are actually helping our children learn how to read before we introduce letters. Then our third step talked all about letter knowledge, and I explained how to introduce letters correctly and some tips to make sure they stick in your child's brain. And then our fourth step was putting all of those steps together in order for your child to read and spell, which the step is called blending and segmenting. When we can blend sounds together, we can read them. And when we can segment the sounds in a word, we can spell that word. So make sure you check back on those episodes if you haven't already. And today we are going to dive deep into the 5th step for reading success, which is actually one that should come later. And I'm going to explain that in a minute. In case you're new here, my name is Erin. I'm from littleslovelearning.com. I'm a former classroom teacher, and now I spend my time supporting parents and helping them teach their kids to read at home. I know what an overwhelming and complex task reading can seem like, but I want you to know that we can break it down into these simple, bite-sized, manageable pieces so that you are able to teach your child to read at home. You don't need a degree in education to do this. You just need a simple guide, a step-by-step approach to teaching your child to read, and that's what I hope this series has been giving you. Really easy, manageable steps for you to teach your child how to read. If you haven't yet, please make sure you grab this freebie, the 5 steps for reading success, so you can see all of the steps that we've been covering. You can see our oral language, phonological and phonemic awareness, letter knowledge, and blending and segmenting. And you can see where we are right at the tippy top of our triangle, heart words. So you might not know what a heart word is, or maybe you do, but you're a little confused about what it means. We're going to dive deep into what a heart word is, the difference between a heart word and a sight word, how we can teach these words correctly, and also when we should start teaching heart words. So let's back up for a minute. You might be familiar with the term sight word, especially if you have a child who has already learned how to read or is currently learning how to read. For a long time, teachers sent home lists of sight words for kids to memorize, and they told kids, these words are just weird words and we can't sound them out, so you just have to memorize the word. That's why they're sight words. They have to be memorized by sight. But actually, that's not true. Research tells us that a sight word is any word that you can read by sight. So for example, if you are a doctor, you're going to have a different sight word vocabulary than if you are a teacher or a pilot or a firefighter. It depends on which words you can read by sight, like that, without having to slow down or try to sound the word out. So a first grader has a sight word of about 1,500 words, but an adult might have a sight word of 30,000 to 70,000 words, depending. So it's not about a list of words that we need to memorize. So we need to stop using the word sight words when we're talking about memorizing these weird words that don't follow the rules. So that's what I wanted to make sure we started with first. Sight words are individual to the reader. What teachers are actually talking about when they say, please memorize these words, these are sight words, they're actually talking about high frequency words. So what's a high frequency word? Well, it's just like what it sounds like. It's a word that we see very, very often in print. That's why it's high frequency. We want our kids to know these words by sight. We want them to become sight words because we see them so often in books and on signs and in everything that we read. But high frequency words can be broken up into 2 different groups. The first group, those are called flash words. Flash words are phonetically decodable. So these are words that are not weird in any way, shape, or form. They're totally normal. So for example, at, it, in, had, and but. Those are all totally normal words that when a child who knows their letters and sounds, they will be able to sound those words out and decode them without any weird anything tripping them up. That's why they're called flash words. Now, the other type of high frequency word is called a heart word. That's what we're talking about in today's step for reading success. Heart words are words that we see over and over again. That's why they're high frequency. But something is weird about the word. There is a sound that is spelled in a way that our child is not expecting, and it totally throws them for a loop. So for example, in the word said, we know that said sounds like s-e-d, said. But that vowel sound in the middle, that sound, is actually spelled with the letters A-I. Well, that's really weird because our little ones are expecting it to be the vowel E. Is what we teach them is spelled with the letter E. So what we want to do is we want to point out to our little one, you know what? That part is really tricky. That's the part we need to remember by heart. It sounds like but it's spelled with A-I, and that's how we spell the word said. So a heart word is just a word that has a part to it that is not phonetically regular, and we have to point out to our little one which part is kind of crazy and how it's actually spelled, and then we put a little heart over it and we say that's the part you need to remember by heart. So some more examples, we have the word the, from, and those words have a part that is irregular, but those are always going to be irregular. They're never going to be able, your child is never going to be able to decode those words unless they know about that heart part. But we do have some heart words that are irregular for a little bit. They're temporary heart words. They might be irregular for your kindergartner because they haven't learned the phonics rules that go along with that word yet. So for example, in the word see, S-E-E, when your child is first starting kindergarten, they do not know that the two E's next to each other represent the long E sound. So when they see the letters S-E-E, they don't know how to decode that word. So we have to teach them, oh yeah, that's a little different. E-E spells the long E sound, see. But that's not always going to be a heart word. Once your child knows that E-E spells the long E sound, or if they're in first grade, that's not going to be a heart part anymore, which is great because we don't want a lot of heart words. We only want a few. But so this is what we call a temporary heart word. The same is true for the word for. F-O-R, for. Now your child, when they're in kindergarten, they don't know that O-R represents the or sound. Or is actually a phoneme. It's the smallest speech sound. O-R is representing the sound or. So your child doesn't understand that O-R is representing or, so they don't know how to sound this word out. You have to explicitly point out to them, oh yeah, O-R is spelling the or sound. So we're going to put a heart above it so you remember that that part is a little tricky. Then they'll be able to remember that that is the word for. But again, that's just a temporary heart word. Once your child knows that O-R spells the or sound, this is not going to be a heart word for them anymore. Those temporary heart words, they're going to become flash words, and your child is going to be able to decode them once they have more phonics skills under their belt. So in the beginning, there's going to be more heart words because they don't know many phonics skills, but our goal is to get those heart words into the flash word category. We want them to be able to decode most of these words. Some of these words will always stay heart words because they're irregular, but a lot of them are only irregular for a short time, and then they're going to become flash words. Now let's talk about how we should introduce these heart words to our little ones. Do you remember this sound mat? If you watched the last episode all about blending and segmenting, I used this sound mat to talk about how we can teach spelling. But this is the same sound mat I'm going to use for my heart words. I'm just going to add a heart above that tricky part. So let's say I'm trying to teach my child the word was. Was is a very common word. It's a high frequency word, but it also has some parts to it that are irregular. So we want to make sure we point those parts out to our child. So step 1 on our sound mat, I am going to pound the word was. Was. Then I'm going to tap out the sounds. W, z, was. All right, let's go sound by sound. First sound, w. How do we spell that sound? My child should know that that is spelled with letter W. That is a totally normal sound. Okay, our next sound in was, How do we normally spell Well, we normally spell it with letter U. But guess what? In this word, it's not letter U anymore. It's spelled with letter A. Can you believe it? That is so tricky. So then we tell them, that's the part we need to remember by heart. And we're going to draw a heart above it like this. All right, now we have z. What's that last sound? Z. How do we normally spell it? With a letter Z. That's true. But this time, it's not going to be a letter Z. We're going to spell it with letter S. And we're going to put a heart above it because that part we need to remember by heart. Z. Was. Isn't that crazy? So you can even, if you want, put the letter that they think is spelled for the word was underneath so that they can remember, okay, this is an A, but it sounds like an This is an S, but it sounds like a Z. Z. Was. You might need to do that for the first time or the second time, but we want to take that away pretty quickly because we want them to understand when they say was that it looks like this. Now in this word, the A, that's always going to be a heart part, A representing But the S representing Z, that's only a temporary heart part. There are actually a lot of words where S is representing the Z sound. And so this is only going to be a temporary heart part. If your child already knows that S can represent the Z sound, you don't even have to use that as a heart part. That's why it's flexible. It really depends on the phonics skills that your child has already learned, if it's a heart part or not. For the temporary ones, the A representing that's always going to be a heart part. So now let me show you a video of this sound mat in action with a little one who is practicing a heart word.
Your word is was. Pound it.
Was.
Tap it.
Z.
Write it.
Z.
Great job.
Was.
Tap each dot.
Z.
And then go along the arrow.
Was.
Great job.
So when should we introduce these heart words? A lot of times we will see these heart words being introduced very early in kindergarten or even in preschool, which just blows my mind. I am of the opinion that these heart words should not be introduced until your child has a solid understanding of the alphabetic principle and they can blend and segment regular words. So if they're looking at a phonetically normal word and they still can't read it or spell it, they're not ready to learn that there are these exceptions to the rules because they don't even know the rules yet. So we want to make sure that they have a solid foundation in blending and segmenting in reading and spelling normal words with consonants and short vowels before we start throwing this monkey wrench into the situation and saying, oh, by the way, we have these words that don't follow the rules. That's my opinion. I also think it's very important that when you do start introducing these heart words, you're giving your child so many opportunities to practice them, not only reading them, but also spelling them. So that's going to look like a lot of multi-sensory activities with Play-Doh or magic sand or going on scavenger hunts. That's also going to look like making sure that your child can read and spell that word. You don't want their spelling to lag behind. You want them to be able to read and spell those heart words. When you introduce them, make sure you're introducing them by phonics skill. So for example, if you are introducing words that use S that spells the Z sound, like we did with was, you could also at the same time introduce words like has, as, is. You want to make sure that you are grouping them by phonics skill so that when you are introducing them, they can see how that rule is broken potentially in lots of words that are similar. So you want them to start seeing the patterns like, oh yeah, this S is representing Z, but I can see it in all of these different words, so they can start making those categories in their mind. So make sure you're giving them lots of opportunities to practice and you are introducing those words in groups based by phonics skills. I also like to make heart word cards so that my little ones can practice. So for example, here was the card for 4. So I have f, or, 4. I want them to see that even though this word has 3 letters, it only has 2 sounds, and I'm showing them that OR is one sound, and that's the heart part if they haven't learned that OR represents or yet. Or in the word from, I want them to see all 4 sounds, from. And that little heart here is just reminding them that that is the only part they need to remember by heart. They don't need someone to tell them, this word is crazy, just remember FROM is from, it's such a weird word. They don't need that. They only need to remember one teeny tiny weird part. The O is representing in from. So these kinds of cards are very helpful for kids so they can see the relationship between the sounds and the letters. I made these cards specifically for the members of my course, Play for Reading Success. So if you're interested in learning more about my course, you can check out the link down below so that you can read more about it. Are you ready for your homework? I'm so glad you're here learning all of this information about the 5 steps for reading success, but none of it is going to matter if you don't actually implement it with your child. If you're not actually taking the steps with your child, they're not going to become a stronger reader. They're not going to improve on their skills. So here's your homework for the heart word step. I would like you to download the free sound mats. The link is down below. And I want you to work with your child on one heart word to see how it goes. Now, here's my caveat. You can only do this homework if your child already has a solid foundation in blending and segmenting. So if they already understand letters and sounds, and they're already able to read or spell a phonetically regular word. If they can't do that, you don't have to do this homework. You get a free pass. But if they can do that and you see that they're ready to practice a heart word, I want you to download these mats, grab one of them that goes along with the correct number of sounds in that heart word, and then I want you to try to introduce that heart word to your child using the heart word method. Maybe it's the word was, maybe it's the word the, or the word from. You get to pick, but just pick one. Introduce it to your child, and then that same word, I want you to practice it over and over again for the whole week. You can play games with it. You can have your child write it. You can have your child read it, but I want you to just pick one and practice it and see how it goes. If your child's not ready for heart words, no worries. You don't have to do this homework. If they are ready, that's great, because then you can start introducing more and more, and that's going to open up the world of literacy for them. They'll be able to start reading and writing more books, and they'll be able to understand more information once they get some of these heart words into their orthographic memory. I hope this information was helpful for you today. Again, if you have not downloaded your freebie, the 5 Steps for Reading Success, please do that now. Go to the link down below, enter your information, and it will be emailed right to you. You can see that you're going to get the overview, but also a page for each of these steps so that you understand more about that step and how you can help your child. It links to freebies. It also links to other videos and more resources so that you can learn more about that step, and make sure you're taking the actionable steps and you're actually putting this into practice so that your child can become a stronger reader. If you have any questions about this or anything else I share on my channel, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can comment down below, or you can find me on my website, littleslovelearning.com. I'm also super active on social media, so you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. My handle is @littleslovelearningblog. I would love for you to reach out if you have a specific question. You can ask me. If you need clarification, I am happy to help. My job is to support you on your journey of teaching your child to read so that they can walk into school feeling confident and proud, and you can also feel confident and proud knowing that you taught them. And that is a feeling that just cannot be replicated. It's the most incredible feeling in the world. Until next time, happy learning. Bye.